My name is Susan Silver, and this is part one of Researching Education Law. The objectives for today are to interpret legal citations, be familiar with the tools to conduct legal research, be familiar with the judicial process, and understand where to locate statutory and case law. So what is legal research? Legal research is generally the process of finding an answer or a legal authority to a question. Legal sources include primary sources. Those are statutes, laws, and constitutions, cases and case law, regulations, and administrative law, and secondary sources, which include books, articles, and legal encyclopedias and other sources. Statutes are laws passed by a legislative body. At the federal level, this is the U.S. Congress. At the state level, that would be the Florida legislature. And at the local level, that would be city or county ordinances. Case law are reported decisions of courts which interpret those laws that were passed by the legislature. There again are several levels of case law. There are the trial courts or municipal courts. Generally, that's where people file lawsuits. Then there are the appellate courts and ultimately the Supreme Court. Another type of primary legal material are administrative and regulatory laws. These are the laws and regulations that oversee the operation and procedures of government agencies. Each agency is established by statute and publishes its own set of regulations. For example, at the federal level, the U.S. Department of Education publishes a set of regulations. At the state level, the Florida Department of Education publishes regulations. Statutory, regulatory, and case law all work together. There are the three branches of government. Statutory law is governed by the legislature. Regulatory law is handled by the judiciary, the court system, and the executive branch oversees the different agencies, and that makes up administrative law. The next thing I want to show you is how to read legal citations. Each time that a court hands down a decision or a legislature passes a law, they promulgate a citation for that piece of legislation or that court case. These are a couple of examples of a Supreme Court decision and a law passed by the Congress. Each one of these laws or court cases or regulations is assigned a citation, much like a citation that you would find for a book or a journal article or some other type of document. Legal citations tend to follow a very similar basic pattern, and there are three parts to it. The first part being the volume or chapter, the source, and then the page or section. And this can vary with the type of legal source that it is. Citations for statutes. Statutory laws are those laws that are passed by the legislature. And this is an example of what a citation for a statute looks like. This happens to be the statute for Title IX, which is discrimination based on sex, and it falls in with all the other education legislation, and that is in Title 20 of the U.S. Code. That's what USC stands for, and that little squiggly mark means section number, and section 1681 and sequential is where it starts. So to read the entire citation, it is Title 20 U.S. Code, section 1681 and sequential. Now, citations can come in different formats because there are many ways that, for example, statutes can be published. When a law is immediately passed, it's given a public law number. And so, for example, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 was given public law number 107-110, which means it was the 110th law passed in the 107th Congress in 2002. Either way, to cite this law is correct, either by the citation using the title number or the public law number. Each state publishes its own statutory code. So different states have different formats. As you can see, Florida doesn't list title or chapter numbers. They just simply list section numbers after the section symbol. Maine, on the other hand, does list their title numbers. Case citations, again, follow a similar pattern. Cases, even though everything has pretty much gone electronic in terms of publishing legal information, just like publishing electronic books and electronic journals, we still use volumes to denote where something is located, volumes and page numbers. So in the case of this particular citation, this is a citation from a Supreme Court case. It appears in volume 347 of U.S. Reports. U.S. Reports is the reporting service that the Supreme Court uses. And the first page of the case is page 483. That's why they list that there. The full citation for this particular case looks like this. This happens to be the citation for Brown versus Board of Education. So they give you the case name, then the volume, then the reporter abbreviation, the page number, and then often they also include the year, so you know what year that particular case was adjudicated. Case citations from other courts look the same, both at the federal appellate level as well as the Florida level. The biggest difference is the source. You're still going to always have your volume and your page numbers and your year. The difference is the source where it comes from. In the case of the appellate division of the federal system, you're going to be in the Federal Reporters. In the case of the Florida Supreme Court, you're going to be in something called the Southern Reporter. Other types of citations, we talked earlier about regulations. Each agency promulgates different regulations, and rather than each agency publishing them by themselves, the government takes all the regulations published by all the agencies, puts them together in something called the Code of Federal Regulations, and it has a similar citation system. It is Chapter 24, Code of Federal Regulations, and then a section number. Florida Administrative Code, where the Florida regulations are from the different Florida agencies, is slightly different. It goes by chapter and then section and year. Now, I did give you some examples of how journal articles are cited in legal style, and in legal circles they call this Blue Book style. However, for disciplines like education and other social sciences, you would cite your primary sources like your laws and your cases and regulations using the Blue Book style as I showed you earlier, but for journal articles you'd want to cite them in regular APA style.